Amano is a hopeless half-wit, whom everyone considers a background character with zero relevance, because he takes gaming more seriously than his future until the school's idol secretly starts liking him, and will do anything to get his attention.
Ready for a good soaking?
It all starts when a girl named Tendo suddenly walks up to him at a game store and speaks to him, causing his brain to short-circuit for a moment, because he never thought the hottest girl in school would talk to a useless nobody like himself. He starts acting like your ugly self when you talk to a pretty chick and flops many times in just a short time, making him wish he could just disappear. He tries to explain himself so she doesn't see him as a creep, but she tells him she understands and compliments that he is so perfect before asking if he would like to join her in the game club, shocking him. Meanwhile, in a different location, this Barbie wannabe named Aguri begs her boyfriend, Tasuku, to help play with the claw machine to win a plushie toy for her, and the dude gets it over with very quickly, making her excited. He begins to feel himself, thinking that he is such a chill guy to have such beauty but without brains as his girlfriend. On their way home that evening, he surprisingly sees Amano, looking like a starved puppy, and wonders if it's not his classmate, who is known to be a game otaku. Tasuku is curious about what he is doing there at this time, but he concludes that a horrible, riskless guy like that can't bag a hot babe like his. Meanwhile, Bro is talking with Tendo, who is talking about the game club she created. She then tells him she doesn't know why everyone is polite toward her, from her classmates to the teachers. She adds that even Kai Sanat was polite one time in the past when she stayed up for 3 days trying to beat the speedrun's world record. However, Amano says this is all cap and tells her she must have been glitching or something. She tells him it's the truth, and somehow agreeing, he tells her he is actually surprised she likes gaming. She replies that she hasn't told anyone about this and reveals that she actually transferred into their present school because it has a famous game club, although it was closed before she got into the school. Now she has managed to revive it and has been looking for new members who are real game otakus. Then she found Amano. She then asks him if he would like to join the game club sometime, but before he can give an answer, Tendo suddenly receives a call from her mom and she has to leave, telling him they will see her in school the next day. Later that night, while Amano plays games, he suddenly thinks about Tendo's offer and becomes excited that this is happening to him. Meanwhile, he gets a notification on his phone to accept or decline a request for assistance from an unknown player called Mono. The next day of school, while he feels anxious about meeting Tendo again, he decides to distract himself with his phone only to see the same request from Mono. He also clicks an option, but Tendo suddenly interrupts and gets all friendly. However, he becomes embarrassed when he sees his classmates staring at them, and he tells Tendo that they should start heading to the game club immediately. Meanwhile, as they leave, Tasuku opens his mouth, surprised that Tendo is friends with the most useless boy in class. On their way, Tendo introduces Amano to another new member of the club, Misumi. As they approach the club room, Amano expresses his surprise that the school approved a gaming club, to which Tendo replies that they actually do more as a club than most people realize. They soon reach the club, and Tendo introduces them to Case and Nina, the other members of the group. Amano is surprised when he sees that dude is playing COD, but Misumi doesn't know what the heck that is since the smooth-brained has only played Candy Crush in his life. Tendo reveals that they bought all the devices and gadgets in the room with prize money from competitions, surprising the two boys. She then asks them to also grab and play to see what they've got. They go on to play for the next 2 hours without stopping, making Amano feel like his soul is about to be sucked out of him. Meanwhile, Case expresses his surprise at Misumi's gameplay, doubting that this is the first time he is playing such a game, but Misumi confirms that it is really his first. Hearing this, Case commends him and says he has the potential to become a top player, but he turns to Amano to ask what the heck he thinks he is playing, making him sad. They decide to take a break, but Case and Nina continue playing, making Amano believe they must either be on meth or crack. Just then, Tendo asks them how they got into gaming, stating that, for example, Case was trained really hard by his mercenary dad when he was young, so he became very good at COD. She tells them Nina's reason too, but when Amano is asked, the numbskull states that he doesn't have a specific reason. Misumi also says the same, exciting Amano since he is not alone, but he instantly feels betrayed when Misumi makes up a reason. Following that, Tendo asks them if they now have enough information about the club and states that they don't have to be very good at games to join. The club was rather put in place to make them get better at games. She finally asks them if they will join the club, and Case appears, offering to teach Amano the basics of the game. Amano becomes excited that he is getting to make friends with game lovers and living his school dream, but he suddenly turns down the offer, saying the club does not have the kind of games that he plays. However, he soon starts to regret declining the offer to join the club, because he doesn't even understand why he did that. He suddenly receives a request from Mono again, and as he attempts to accept it, Tendo comes to beg him to join the club again, surprising the whole class. Tendo then stretches her hand to him, but Bro rather accepts Mono's request and shake her hand. He tells her he can't join the club, and when she asks if this is because he thinks he is not good enough, he says so, revealing that he wants to play games for fun and not competitively. He apologizes and says that while being in the club is a great idea, he wants to keep gaming the way he likes to. This comes as a heartbreak message to Tendo, and she starts to cry immediately because this is the first time she has ever been rejected. She leaves in anger and pain but soon slips on a banana peel and falls while the whole class watches in embarrassment, making her even more embarrassed. Their classmates wonder what just happened and begin to hate Amano, since he has been a mysterious loner whom they don't understand. In the next class, Tasuku won't stop staring at Amano, still wondering what the deal is about him. Later, during the lunch break, Aguri gets talking with Tasuku and his friends, and she reveals that everyone in her class is talking about the Amano Tendo saga, surprising Tasuku. However, his friends are surprised he is just knowing and ask if the two are even dating, since they don't seem to be really close. Tasuku is surprised at the question and instantly remembers when she gave him a love letter. Bro just accepted that day because he was lonely and had no reason to refuse. Meanwhile, Aguri, who doesn't know she is just being used to pass the time, says she is cool as long as she gets to be with Tasuku. After school, they head to an arcade, and Tasuku separates from his girlfriend to play the game alone. However, while he plays, he suddenly has a memory flash of when he was always mocked as a young chap. He wonders how long he will have to keep seeing these visions, and then he suddenly spots Amano, who was watching him play. Amano starts to act like a creep with poor social skills and asks Tasuku if he likes games, but he replies that he has never really thought about it. Tasuku then shows him a game he found, and Amano becomes passionate as he talks about how good it is, like it's a paid advert. He recommends playing the game, but Tasuku replies that he doesn't need his recommendation, so Amano apologizes and leaves. However, a few moments later, Tasuku notices the stupid boy parading the arcade like he wants to steal a game console, and he is surprised that an otaku like him doesn't even know his way around an arcade. He then approaches him and tells him to come with him for a moment, but Amano fearfully replies that he is straight. Tasuku asks him to shut up and asks if he will play with games or not. Amano immediately jumps at the offer, and they head to the next game stand immediately with Amano, yapping about how he has never played the games before. He only came to watch demos and left since there are no partner to play with, surprising Tasuku, who can't believe that this was the idiot that turned down the hottest girl in school. He then asks what the relationship between him and Tendo is, and Amano explains all that happened, prompting Tasuku to ask what the difference between the game he plays and the one at the game club is, but Amano doesn't have the best answer. Meanwhile, Aguri wonders where her boyfriend is, and she suddenly sees a yellow-haired girl lurking around the arcade. Tasuku and Amano soon start to play together, and even though it's Tasuku's first time, he oops Amano's backside really hard. But he notices that Amano is so happy and wonders why he is that happy playing a simple fighting game. Tasuku defeats him again and feels terrible that he even played with such an amateur. They go on to play other games, and later while they take a break with Amano visibly enjoying the moment, Tasuku suddenly asks him if he is using the opportunity to play the games he couldn't play alone. But Amano becomes embarrassed and quickly returns to the arcade for the next game. As Tasuku follows after, he suddenly sees Tendo and wonders what the heck she is doing there. Meanwhile, Amano suddenly sees Tasuku's friends and immediately yeets out of the arcade, wishing Tasuku a good one. Tasuku wonders what just happened, and as soon as he realizes it, he chases after him immediately. He soon stops Amano and asks him why he ran away, but Amano denies running. He then asks Tasuku why he would be with him since he has a life after all. Takusu gets angry and locks his collar, telling him never to say such trash to him again. He expresses that he used to be a geek too, and all the differences he sees are because he made an effort to be better. He also says his idea of playing for fun is just cracked, and he should rather stop playing games altogether. He then finally says that Tendo's game is BS, making Amano so angry that he threatens to push him off the bridge. He can insult him and trash talk him the way he wants, but it doesn't give him the right to insult someone he barely knows. He defends that Tendo is a good and kind girl who invited someone as useless as himself to the game club, and says he should take back the insult. Tasuku begs for his life, and Amano suddenly realizes that proceeding further could land him in the same jail as Epstein, so he quickly leaves him and apologizes. Tasuku immediately remembers when he packed up his game collections and reasons that he was stupid to compare Amano to himself. He then apologizes, saying he never thought the same guy who turned down a direct invitation from Tendo would defend the game club so passionately. Afterward, they settle their dispute, and both part ways. Meanwhile, Tasuku soon sees Tendo drooling over Amano from afar, and he is surprised that the school's idol has fallen head over heels for him. He mentions it to her, and she becomes embarrassed. As he walks away, he plans to egg both of them on, as this would be a good way to harass Amano. He returns to his girlfriend, and she begs him to win another plushie for her, but he declines, saying he has spent a lot of money playing games with another guy already. However, when she continues to give him attitude, he decides to play for her. Meanwhile, he starts to think about how uneventful their relationship has been, even though they have been dating for 6 months. He wonders why he is even dating her, and decides to ask her what she liked about him that made her confess to him, expecting she would talk about his face or something. However, she tells him she has liked him since their old school, the day he first won a plushie for her. Bro is shocked because he was a broke loser then, and had no hope, so he only came to the arcade to distract himself that day. He runs off immediately, feeling embarrassed, and suddenly begins to find her cuter than before. The next day, Tasuku appears in class like he just beat the Ender Dragon in Minecraft, and meets Amano to tell him that he enjoyed the day before, surprising him. Then, he tells Amano to make sure to recommend another good one he finds. Tasuku's friends become surprised and ask him when they started getting along and why he seems very happy. He happily reveals that he is now in gaming mode. Some days later, Tasuku comes to confront Amano about a game he had recommended to him, saying it was boring as heck, but Amano is more excited about the fact he tried the game anyway. Tasuku goes on to explain that the game was initially good and interesting, but it ended in some trashy way that made him regret ever playing it. Amano apologizes and says he also thinks the game producers' games suck, but they have this inexplicable charm about them. However, Tasuku doesn't understand what he means, so Amano compares it to how irrational it is to fall in love. Tasuku reminds the idiot is nothing but a useless virgin who is here telling a guy with a degree in plot development about love. However, Tasuku immediately takes back his word and asks what is going on between him and Tendo, shocking Amano because he doesn't know what he means. Tasuku asks him if he noticed Tendo has been stalking him since he rejected her, and the silly dude replies that he only sees her in the corner of his eye sometimes. Tasuku is surprised that they are not seeing each other, but advises them to be careful not to pass each other by so much that they completely lose touch. Just then, Amano receives a notification and asks Tasuku if he doesn't mind him playing the game for a bit. As he plays, Tasuku sees his nickname, Sachi, and asks why he is using that, and Amano replies that he doesn't like using his real name online, so he decided to use the short form of his mom's maiden name. Hearing this, Tasuku calls it lame, as he was expecting a cooler reason, other than the trash he just spewed from his mouth. He goes on to ask about his partner, Mono, and Amano excitedly reveals that he has been playing with her since he started the game. He further expresses that it is quite exciting to feel close to someone you have not met in person. But hearing this only makes Tasuku think that dudes still has a long way to go. He suggests Amano might need some rehab before he can begin to enjoy the rom-com between him and Tendo. Amano instantly feels like dog poop as he compares himself with Tendo, but Tasuku tells him he wants to help him level up being in the loner mode. He then grabs Amano and suggests that he start by talking to a hot chick who likes the same kind of games he plays. After school, Tasuku takes him to the next class to show him an otaku loner just like him named Chiaki, and tells him to go rizz her up. Amano refuses, but while Tasuku tries to push him into the class, Aguri appears and calls Tasuku, asking him if he is not hanging out with her today. So he has to leave. However, he tells Amano he has to speak to Chiaki. A few moments later, while he stands by the entrance, a student teases him about coming to meet Tendo, but the dude replies that he has no business with her and reveals he has come to speak to another girl, which causes Tendo to melt into dust in her seat.
Emotional damage!
He goes to Chiaki's seat, and as he attempts to talk to her, Tendo approaches him to greet him and ask why he is in their class. He replies that he came to see a girl, and when Tendo assumes that it must be something managerial, he tells her no. He came to make friends with the girl beside him. This almost knocks Tendo, but he quickly grabs her, and she runs off after calling him a moron. He then turns to Chiaki, but she instantly shrinks in her seat, wondering who he is. Then he talks about the game she is currently playing, surprising her. They meet outside later and begin to have a very boring conversation. She suddenly realizes that he might be from the game club and quickly apologizes, saying she is not interested. But Amano says that he is not from there, as he was also invited to join the club. The two soon realize that they have similar reasons for not wanting to join the club, and due to this chemistry they share, they will become very good friends who love to talk about games. But before it can reach any stage of otaku plot development, they begin to have a fight over their individual preferences in games. Tasuku manages to settle their dispute, but another argument soon sparks up. While Tasuku tries to stop them again, Amano replies that they are lonely gamers with nothing but inflated egos, so they can't compromise when it comes to games. Suddenly, Amano notices Aguri oozing some ominous aura as she stares at them from the entrance. But Tasuku, who doesn't remember that he was supposed to meet his girlfriend, starts complimenting Chiaki about her looks. He tells her he likes her hair as it is but suggests that she would look better with shorter hair, rizzing her up. Meanwhile, Amano fears for Tasuku as he realizes that Aguri is about to implode. But he also doesn't realize that Misumi and Tendo are spying, with Tendo stressing over what is happening between him and Chiaki. On her way home that night, Tasuku observes that his girlfriend is unusually quiet today. She suddenly asks him what he was doing in the classroom earlier, and he replies that he was settling disputes between two otakus. She then asks what the deal with Amano he has been hanging out with lately is, to which he replies that they are only talking about games. But this doesn't make Aguri any better. The next day, everyone gets talking about a new girl who seems to be so cute, leaving Tasuku wondering what is wrong. Amano comes to meet him to ask about Aguri's expression on their way home yesterday, but he replies that she was pretty normal. However, he wonders why Amano is asking about her. Just then, Chiaki suddenly calls them, and seeing her, they almost lose their breath at her beauty, wondering who she is. They soon realize that she is the girl who previously had seaweed for her hair, and Tasuku becomes surprised that his little advice has transformed her into a hottie. He tells her she is super cute, but Amano turns around using his ultra instinct only to find Aguri running off in sadness, so he chases after her. As Amano looks for Aguri, he meets Tendo, who immediately starts to apologize like a creep, but bro doesn't give a cent about what she is saying and asks her if she saw a girl with nicely shaped cakes. She tells him which way to go, and he thanks her as he prepares to continue chasing, but Tendo asks him why he is chasing after her, and he tells her that it's some relationship drama, immediately breaking her heart. Amano soon meets Aguri and shyly invites her to have tea with him. At the cafe, he tries to convince her that it is not what she thinks is happening between Tasuku and Chiaki, and she instantly becomes excited. She goes to bring another drink, but as she returns, she sees the unthinkable. Following this, Tendo thinks about her daily routine. She wakes up by 5:30 and leaves the house for a jog, as the morning is a time for self-enrichment for her. After that, she bathes and moves on to her early morning studies, then to breakfast, and afterward, she quickly prepares to leave for school. She is not the type to fuss about her appearance because she is more concerned about what comes from the inside. Following that, she leaves for school, and upon arriving at school, the first thing she does is to socialize with her friends. During the break, she assists her teachers, not because she is concerned about points but rather because she values the experience she gets from it. Then comes the most depressing part, where the ugliest guys in school confess to her, but she ends up declining their requests respectfully. She then heads to the game club, where she is secretly a member, to hone her gaming skills with the other members. Afterward, she returns home, studies some more, gets in some more games, and finally goes to bed early for the next day. However, recently, since she started crushing on Amano, she wakes up by 5:30 from a dream about Amano, rolls on the bed like a fool in embarrassment, and goes back to sleep only to wake up by 7. She rushes her homework, has her breakfast, and then quickly prepares for school. Now she is more concerned about her appearance and rushes to school half prepared. At school, she doesn't socialize with friends anymore and hides from Amano whenever she sees him while hungry for his sausage. During breaks, she skips talking with her friends, and when she assists the teachers, she takes the longer route so she can see Amano. To the most depressing part, she now turns ketchup red when the dude she rejects asks her if she is interested in anyone. After school at the game club, she zones out during games. Nina notices this and tells her she has been out of it lately, to which she replies that her mind has been wandering off to a lot of unrelated matters about Amano. Case suddenly breaks it to her that she has been losing her edge and is not as good as she used to be. They remind her that she is the president of the club and cannot afford to slack off, so she decides to improve. But that night, as she prepares to sleep, she starts thinking about Amano again, hoping he comes to the gaming club the next day. This idiot does this till 2 a.m. The next day at the game club, while she plays games with Misumi, he asks her if she has heard anything concerning the relationship between Chiaki and Amano. Hearing this, Tendo turns from anime to manga instantly and loses the game terribly. Tendo soon gets concerned about her recent performance, and she reasons that she has changed her style of playing since Amano said the most important part of gaming is having fun. She suddenly becomes embarrassed at the thought of him and starts walking as fast as possible until she is suddenly stopped by the very guy she is running from. She tries to compose herself before him and asks him if he is out shopping. Amano replies that he had been playing games all day, so his mom yelled at him and asked him to touch grass. Tendo suggests he goes on a walk with her then instead of roaming around like a stray pig, but he shyly refuses, saying a hot girl like her shouldn't be found with an ape like himself. However, Tendo, not going to allow him to reject her this time again, moves closer to him to ask him if he hates her, but he tells her no, turning her red instantly. although he tells her he doesn't want to bother her with more rumors flying around. He immediately tries to leave, but she pulls him back and tells him she only wants a walk and not a date. Then, she turns to leave, asking him to follow her. They head towards the arcade, and on their way, Amano tells her he never knew she goes to the arcade, and she replies that she does whenever the club doesn't meet. She asks about him, and he tells her he always thought he didn't like it until he had a chance to go with someone recently. Hearing this makes Tendo think he is talking about Chiaki, but she convinces herself that it must be Tasuku. On their way in, Amano stops by the crane game, and when he asks her if she also loves to play the game, Tendo imagines that he and Chiaki must have played together and kissed each other while at it. She becomes and starts to hit her head on a machine. Amano suddenly asks her if she would like to play coin games, and Bro immediately risks 500 yen to play it, surprising her. He wins more coins, and Tendo, not wanting to be seen as trash, decides to play too. She suggests a challenge, and whoever ends up with the most amount in 30 minutes wins. They get to playing immediately, and while Tendo returns with a sack full of coins, Amano returns like a beggar asking for alms. However, Tendo remains unsatisfied even though she won, and she wonders why. A coin drops from her, and Amano asks that he use it to play a game on which he will bet their challenge. Tendo is surprised, and says she thought he was the type who was not interested in winning. But Amano shockingly replies that if it is a challenge, he's got to win, or it won't be fun. However, he loses the game, making him sad. Meanwhile, Tendo finds it difficult to understand this, and asks why he was sad when he lost, even though he had declined her invitation to join the club, because he didn't want to play games to win. She tells him she thought he only cared about having fun and not winning, but Amano replies that he cares about winning too, which Tendo finds ridiculous. Amano then goes on to say that if he didn't care about winning, there wouldn't be any fun in playing video games, surprising Tendo. This prompts her to ask why he doesn't want to join the club then, and he tells her it's simply because he doesn't have the tenacity it takes to win. Tendo then asks if she and the club are silly for always getting worked up over winning and losing in video games, but Amano excitedly replies that to enjoy victories and worry about the losses is the biggest thrill in gaming, immediately lighting up Tendo's face as she realizes that he doesn't have anything against the club. Afterward, Tendo gets up and says that's all for today because she is dying to go home and play games right away. Back to the situation at the cafe. Just a few moments back, while Tasuku and Chiaki were walking together on the road, with Tasuku wondering where Amano ran off to with his girl. Chiaki tells him she wants to talk with him about game development, prompting him to ask if she is developing a game. She says yes, and Tasuku advises her to talk to someone who obviously knows more about games, referring to Amano, but she replies that she doesn't care about that dimwit. Just then, Chiaki receives a notification on a game, and as she hurriedly tries to play, Takusu sees Mono as her nickname, leaving him wondering where he has seen it before. He suddenly remembers Amano once talking about the same name, and then he checks to see who Mono's game partner is, only to find out it is Sachi, Amano's nickname. It was at this moment Amano and Aguri saw them in a loving position. Tasuku asks Chiaki how long he has known Sachi, and she replies that he has been her friend since she started playing the game. She adds that it's exciting communicating with someone she has never seen, the same statement Amano made about her, shocking Tasuku, because this can only be fate. He then asks what she thinks about Amano, but she replies that she hates him more than Tanjiro hates Musen. Later, while they are across a park, Tasuku presses further, asking if she really doesn't like Amano, and she replies that she'd rather jump from Burj Khalifa than be on a deserted island alone with him. Tasuku then asks how she came about her nickname, and she repeats the same thing Amano had told him, making him realize that the anime gods must have destined them together. He wonders why they are not dating already and wishes there was a way he could solve this ASAP. Just then, he suddenly comes up with an idea and enters Cloud 9 just thinking about it. The next day, he gathers Amano and Chiaki together after school and shares his plan to form a gamers meetup group where video gamers will come together and have fun playing games just like they want. The two find this idea very cool, but there is one problem. They both don't want to see each other in the group. Seeing that these creeps won't stop fighting, he says the group will not only be for talking about games, they will also be allowed to debate them, surprising them. However, Amano states that 3 of them are not enough for a meetup group, and Tasuku tells them there is one more person. Tendo enters at that moment, and she freezes upon seeing that Amano and Chiaki are both in the group, even though they had refused to join her game club. She asks them if they both chose the meetup group over the game club because of each other, and the idiots innocently answered yes, shocking Tasuku and Tendo. She immediately says she can't be here, but But this is going to spoil Tasuku's plan to put Amano in a rom-com situation with two hotties, while also helping him keep an eye on the relationship between Aguri and Amano. He quickly grabs a seat for Tendo to ensure she stays and then starts up a conversation about Chiaki's game development. Chiaki reveals her fears that her game might end up not being as popular as she imagines, but Amano gives an industry expert-level advice that immediately fizzles her fears out. However, the two soon continue hating each other, and Amano says he doesn't care about the flops she calls games anyway. Tendo notices some chemistry between the two, but Tasuku suddenly whispers to her that she is the reason Amano got talking with Chiaki, as he was looking to talk with her and decided to try a fellow gamer first. Tendo's countenance changes immediately, and Tasuku smiles because he has finally gotten her too, surprising Amano and Chiaki, who think there is a spark between them. Meanwhile, they are not aware that Aguri is by the door seeing them. She calls Amano, and he stands up to leave immediately. After he leaves, Chiaki comments that he never knew Amano had such a cute girlfriend, as she had also seen them together a previous time, shocking Tasuku and Tendo. The two run off immediately, feeling terrible about the new development. Amano and Aguri head to the cafe, where she begins to cry and blame him for assuring her that Tasuku liked her. It soon gets chaotic, and the waiter comes to caution them to stop the noise. As Aguri calms down, Amano comments that he never knew Tasuku was such a player. He then asks her if she still likes him, and she says yes, prompting Amano to ask her why she doesn't just find someone who seems to be more compatible. She replies that love is not something you choose to do. You rather fall in love, surprising Amano. So he grabs her hand and promises to ensure they both come back together. They suddenly notice Chiaki looking at them in this sus position, shocking them. Amano quickly heads out to meet her and performs some gymnastics to de-escalate the situation. The fishbrain soon returns and brags to Aguri that he just handled it by telling Chiaki how she is the most thoughtful girlfriend in the world, and that there is no other girl who is as beautiful and cute as she is. Aguri is excited that she did that for him, so she promises to do everything in her power to be the perfect wingwoman for him with Tendo. Meanwhile, at the arcade, Tasuku can't get his mind off the thought that Amano and Aguri might be smashing, no matter the excuse he tries to give. The next day, Amano meets Tasuku for tips on how to beat a dating sim game he is having difficulty with, and he tells him he ought to be more focused on talking to real girls than stressing himself over something that's not real. However, Amano replies that he doesn't have the facial stats to talk with Tendo, but Tasuku tries to convince him that he is already talking to her, since they both went to the arcade together. Meanwhile, Amano doesn't think that counts and wonders if this dude is so concerned about him and Tendo, so he can also get closer to her. But Bro expresses how genuinely he wants them to get along, causing Amano to grab his hand in excitement that Tasuku really cares about him. Chiaki walks in at that moment, and seeing Amano again in a sus position with a dude, she runs out, wondering,
"Why are you gay?"
Tasuku runs after her immediately. They meet at the cafe and Tasuku, thinking about the whole situation, can't believe that he is hanging out with Chiaki again. Chiaki suddenly says that she still doesn't understand how Amano has such a cute girlfriend, and Tasuku pretends as though he is also surprised. Chiaki then goes on to talk about how Amano was bragging about his girlfriend, shocking Tasuku, who asks if she is sure she wasn't hearing something different. Chiaki affirms that dude was bragging about his girl, and Tasuku's expression changes. Chiaki notices and asks what's up, but he tells her that they should talk about something different. He tries talking about Amano, but Chiaki says she wishes that dog ends up on Truck Kuman's victim list. Tasuku changes the subject and asks her what she thinks about Tendo. Meanwhile, Amano and Aguri sneak in and sit close by. In answer to Tasuku's question, Chiaki says that she is garbage compared to Tendo and wishes they could be friends someday. Hearing this, Tasuku says she should go out with Amano already, making her wonder why he said that. She also returns the question about Tendo, and he replies that she is flawless, shocking Chiaki, as she thinks that this confirms that he likes her. However, Tasuku tells her not to worry, saying he would still pick Chiaki over Tendo because she looks perfect in his eyes. Chiaki becomes embarrassed immediately and runs off, shocking him, so he quickly follows her. Meanwhile, Amano and Aguri are shocked because they have now confirmed that Tasuku is cheating. Following that, Aguri sits like she just survived a zombie attack, still declaring that she loves Tasuku. Amano asks her what she will do now, but Aguri flips it back by asking about his progress with Tendo. It happens that Tendo still sees himself as a piece of rag not worthy of being her friend. Aguri replies that he would have to talk to Tendo directly, which prompts him to ask how she confessed to Tasuku. She blushes immediately and says she walked to him boldly to ask if he would go out with her. Aguri finally advises that if he really wants to be friends with Tendo, he won't have a problem telling her that, so Amano becomes determined to talk to Tendo like a man the next day without minding what will happen. The next day at school, Tendo rejects another loser brutally and Misumi, seeing this, meets her to talk about it. She tells him she does that because she doesn't want to give them false hopes, thinking they might still have a chance with her. Misumi then tells her he has observed that she seems to have developed the habit of being dismissive of everything recently, and he advises her to be a little more open in her reactions, as that is the ideal Tendo. So she decides to take his advice. Later that night, Amano keeps failing at a dating sim game, and he takes it that this might be a sign that he is not fundamentally compatible with Tendo. Just then, he receives some messages from Aguri and Tasuku, cheering him about the next day, and he thanks them for their support. Following that, he goes back to the game, changing his strategy, and he shockingly wins. He gets excited and is grateful to his friends for helping him achieve this, and he becomes more confident about his confession the next day. The following day, Amano realizes that Tasuku has told everyone about his intention, and he gets somehow pissed because he never wanted this. However, Tasuku tells him that he is doing it for his future, because once he establishes a friendship with Tendo, he will gain the respect of everyone who sees them together. Hearing this, Amano gets excited and apologizes for being myopic before. During the class, the different parties involved in this saga started to analyze the potential of Amano's friend request. Aguri gets so disturbed that she almost goes mad in her seat thinking about the whole thing. Chiaki, however, wonders why Amano is making a request to Tendo when he is dating Aguri, but she concludes that since there is a rumor about Aguri and Tasuku, she must be playing Amano, who is nothing but the fool in this whole equation. Meanwhile, Tasuku reveals his ulterior motive for doing this, and it is to see if Aguri is cheating on him with Amano or not. He speculates that if she is happy seeing Amano and Tendo become friends, then she is not cheating. But she shows any hint of jealousy, it means she is cheating on him. Aguri, too, decides to keep a watch on Tasuku's expression, while Chiaki is determined to find the truth between the three. At the same time, Tendo is fussing over why Amano might be wanting to see her after school. She reasons that he might be planning to end their friendship since he is tired of her pestering. However, she decides to keep her heads up and maintain her dignity no matter what comes. Immediately, the bell rings and they all run to the location. However, as Tendo heads there, she tries to calm herself as much as possible, reminding herself of the advice Misumi gave her. She soon gets to Class 2F and calls for Amano, who is surprised to see everyone waiting to see what is about to happen. Tendo asks him why he asked to meet her, and as he tries to reply, she gets very anxious. Amano, too, starts to overthink that she is definitely about to reject him. Meanwhile, Tasuku and Aguri observe each other's reactions, and seeing the little disgust on their faces, each person assumes that the other person is cheating. Amano suddenly asks her to go out with him, and Tendo, not realizing that this was what he was going to say, tells him yes, shocking the whole class. From then on, Amano becomes the attraction of the whole class as everyone keeps staring at him like he just wrongly won the Grammys. Tasuku mentions this to him, and he replies that it is his fault that he is gaining this much attention. However, Tasuku tells him that no one could have thought he was going to go beyond friendship and move to a relationship immediately. Tasuku then says that he doesn't even know what to say to Aguri because the guy she likes is with Tendo. Amano wonders what that means, but soon thinks that he means that the guy which Aguri likes, which is him, is with Tendo, and Amano concludes that he must really be cheating. Later, Amano thinks of calling back his confession to Tendo if everyone continues to think they are dating, since it was all a mistake in the first place. He crosses paths with Tendo on his way out, but he embarrassingly excuses himself from there before she can say anything. As he later walks across the hallway with everyone staring at him, he suddenly sees Chiaki baiting him to come from afar, and he goes to meet her, wondering what the heck she wants. Chiaki commends his move the previous day and is excited that he finally got to end things with Aguri, whom she thought was playing him. But Amano doesn't understand what she is talking about. He later meets Aguri, who stares at him like she should harvest his head, and he quickly apologizes to avoid being unalived, but she tells him she was just kidding. Amano, however, doesn't believe that, and Amano replies that she can't be jumping around the place like an overwhelmed cow when she just confirmed that her boyfriend is cheating. Amano, however, says that she can't just make a conclusion based on his supposedly guilty stare alone, but she asks him why else Tasuku would panic when looking at her, if not that he was cheating. She then blames Amano as the reason for her bad luck, since all these happened when she started talking with him, making Amano think he must really have a problem. Aguri then asks him what he wants to happen with Tendo, to which he replies that he is considering ending things with her, but Aguri tells him that it depends on what he truly wants and he should not let someone else decide something this important for him. The next day, Tendo is on the rooftop, panicking as she waits for Amano, wondering why he asked to meet her. As soon as he arrives, he asks her if she really hates him. Tendo gets even more embarrassed and tells him she knows he wants to take back his confession. She advises him to do it if that's what he wants, apologizing for allowing herself to get caught in the moment. However, he suddenly says he is glad that she doesn't hate him, and then uses the opportunity to ask her out on a date, shocking her. She immediately assumes a karate stance, wondering if that was a slip of the tongue or something. But he tells her he said what he said since they are in a relationship, after all, embarrassing her. She agrees to the date and runs off immediately in embarrassment. On the day of their date, the two bozos head to an arcade, and after doing some intense gaming activities, Tendo asks what they should do next. Bro brings out a map to the arcade floors, and seeing a pool, he quickly covers it so Tendo doesn't see it.
Come on, man.
However, she calls his attention to the pool, suggesting they check that out. He becomes embarrassed and almost disagrees because his ugly eyes shouldn't be worthy of beholding her hot body, but she blackmails him into agreeing, saying he just doesn't want to see her in a swimsuit. At the poolside, Tendo appears in her swimsuit, looking yummy.
Nice.
And seeing her, Amano loses a brain cell immediately. The idiot thanks her for allowing him this opportunity, but she tells him that what normal people do is compliment how she looks. They soon see a girl and a guy playing in the pool, getting themselves wet, and Tendo suggests they play the game too. Whoever manages to get the other person wet first wins. As soon as they start playing the game, Tendo wins by getting Amano really damp, but they suddenly see the couple they are copying getting sus, so they decide this is the part where they leave the pool to play a different game instead. They suddenly see two dudes trying to wrist Chiaki, but she runs away from them because of how ugly they are and comes to grab Amano melons tight, asking for his help. The dudes leave immediately, seeing that she has a guy, but Tendo gets jealous as she sees how pressed Chiaki's melons are to Amano's hand. Noticing this, Amano calls Chiaki's attention to the fact that he is on a date with Tendo, and Chiaki replies that she knows, prompting Amano to then ask why the heck she is still holding him that way if she knows, but Chiaki responds that their dating is nothing but fake after all.
What do you mean by that?
Following this, Amano asks Chiaki why she is here though, and she replies that her sister invited her, but they got separated and she is worried about her. Tendo offers to assist in looking for her sister, but when Amano says he will help too, she tells him to leave it to her, while he heads to the ground floor to wait for her for their next set of games. Amano leaves immediately like an obedient boy, making Chiaki wonder if this is what dating entails. After a while, Tendo and Chiaki appear while Amano waits, and he wonders why Chiaki is still with her. Chiaki explains that it turned out that her sister had already gone home, and then she suggested that she could help him make Tendo happier, but Amano realized that this was just a scheme to join them. While they later play a car racing game, Amano gets a bomb roulette, which he is supposed to use to his advantage to blow up his opponents, but he instead uses it abruptly for the fun of it. However, he feels terrible on their way home, thinking Tendo must be ashamed of his stupidity. However, she laughs, telling him this is what she loves about him. They both enter a cocky moment of confession your lonely face shouldn't be bothered about. Meanwhile, in a different school, a girl named Konoha gets creepy after meeting with her student council members, excited that they are all very cute girls who she wouldn't mind touching. She disguises herself as an old man and heads to the game store to check on some games that are not suitable for the public eye. While she checks out some games to buy, she suddenly sees two unknown dudes coming who happen to be Misumi and Amano. She quickly hides, and seeing their uniforms, she realizes it's the same school Tendo is attending. She soon starts fawning over Misumi, but she thinks Amano is a horrible-looking character who gains no attention in dating sims. Misumi suddenly asks Amano for a game recommendation, and he gets embarrassed at the request, since he has not been asked such before. Amano asks if there is any game he likes, and Misumi shows him one he found. Amano gets excited about it, saying the game was so good that it deprived him of sleep for a week till he completed it. Meanwhile, Konoha, who is still eavesdropping, gets disappointed at the choice and attempts to leave, but she becomes more curious when Amano suddenly tells Misumi that although the game is good, he won't recommend it to him. Amano asks if he wants to learn what makes dating sims good, and Misumi replies yes, saying that no one in the game club knows much about it. Amano then goes to bring another one, and when Konoha hears the name, she is shocked he is recommending that since the game is old, but she becomes amused when Amano gives his reason for recommending it. She also gets the game and lies on the couch at home, thinking about what happened earlier. She gets embarrassed and lies that she borrowed the game from a friend when her sister, Chiaki, sees the game, but Chiaki tells her to stop the cap as she points her attention to the price tag on the game. Following that, Tasuku decides to call everyone together to spend some time and settle the long-standing misunderstanding between them. Meanwhile, a few days ago, Chiaki showed Amano and Tasuku a romance board game she discovered and suggested they play together at her place. However, Tasuku cooks one of his silly ideas and suggests they invite Tendo and Aguri to join to make it even merrier, but he thought this would be an opportunity to gather everyone so they could settle the stuff going on between them. However, he becomes disappointed when the gathering turns out to be something other than he had expected, as everyone seems to have become so careful around each other that they end up sitting this way. As they play the romance board game, they all seem to be ending in situations that perfectly describe what is happening in real life, which makes Tasuku almost lose his brain screws. Just then, they suddenly hear the door jam, scaring Tasuku, but Chiaki tells him not to worry. It's her sister. However, Roloki thought her sister was about to insert a dagger in his body. A few moments later, Chiaki excuses herself to attend to herself, and during this little break, Amano says he is kind of interested in Chiaki's sister. But this comes off wrongly to the others, and he starts to explain otherwise. Just then, Amano receives a notification on his phone, and soon starts to play his usual game on his phone. So Tendo goes to stand beside him to see what he is doing. Noticing the two, Aguri calls Tasuku's attention to them, saying she is happy things are working out between them. Tasuku is surprised and suddenly holds her to ask what is between her and Amano, since they have become really close lately. She replies that she sees him like a brother, and even though he might be quite annoying sometimes, she is generally happy for him, because he now has a girlfriend, shocking Tasuku. He then grabs her hand because she remains his girlfriend after all. Just then, Amano rants that the game is boring without Mono, prompting Tendo to ask who she is. He starts talking about her excitedly, and it is at this moment that Chiaki returns, shocking Tasuku because things are about to go down. Chiaki overhears Amano talking about his nickname, Suchi, and how Mono and Novi, the game developer, are special to him, shocking her. Chiaki thinks back to the first time she wrote a game. She was initially amused by the simple communication between the producer and player, but before she knew it, she became a freeware game developer, and the fun fizzled out. What she started as a hobby had now become a task, and the only reason she couldn't stop releasing more games under the name Novi was that there was always someone cheering her on and rooting for her with respect and warmth. Chiaki regains her mind and sees only her sister in the living room, surprising her because everyone was just here some moments ago. She remembers what Amano was saying but chooses to still hate him, because this revelation is not going to change the way she used to see him. But she soon folds on the ground feeling embarrassed. From then onward, it becomes difficult for her to chat with Amano as Novi, and she falls to the ground, still embarrassed by the whole thing. Afterward, she goes to meet Konoha to tell her she is going to the store, only to find her panting like she was just using her toy.
I'm gonna come.
But Konoha says she is only doing some body workouts. As Chiaki leaves for the store, Konoha asks if she can borrow her computer because her own does not have the required specs to watch the videos she loves. This makes Chiaki curious about what exactly she is watching, but Konoha rushes her out of the apartment. At the store, Chiaki suddenly sees Amano watching her and calls him a creepy stalker, but he defends that he was only going to her place to get his transit pass, which he had forgotten when he saw her. She tells him she might have to call the police on him, but realizes that her phone is dead, disappointing Amano because he can't understand how a Gen Z would walk around with a dead phone. Chiaki defends that she always has guys hit on her a lot during summer, hence the reason she doesn't check her phone, but dude calls it all cap. She gets pissed, asking him what the heck he even knows about her, and he replies that he knows her body,
Yeah, boy.
shocking her. He further says that her skin doesn't resemble someone who touches grass often. She gets even more pissed, asking him how he knows that, and he replies that his skin also looks the same. On the way to her house, Chiaki asks why he is so concerned about it anyway, since he plays games all day during summer, but he replies that he feels that this summer would be different from usual. Chiaki immediately assumes that it must be related to Tendo, but Amano quickly clarifies that they don't have a specific date plan or anything. They continue yapping till they get home, and upon entering Chiaki's house, Amano just plans to get his card wallet and leave, but Chiaki, seeing it first, quickly hides so that he can spend some time before he leaves. As Amano sits in the living room, he suddenly sees Chiaki's cheek curtains on the line across the window, embarrassing her, so she calls him a loser and tells him not to look. Bro immediately attempts to leave, but she stops him and says he can have a look as much as he wants, surprising him. She heads to her room to charge her phone, still hiding the card wallet, and while she smiles over a message she received from Suchi, Amano suddenly appears to inform her it is starting to rain, so she can bring her laundry inside. However, Chiaki suddenly freaks out and slips as she tries to protect her phone and computer view, throwing the phone off her hand in the process. Amano picks it up, and while she tells him not to check her computer screen or phone, Bro looks up to see Novi's game website. He then looks at her phone and sees Mono's name, leaving him wondering what is happening here. Left with no choice, she starts to explain, but just when she is about to reveal who Novi and Mono are, Konoha emerges from under the sheets, and Chiaki says she is the one, shocking Amano. The next day, he meets Tasuku to inform him about it, surprising Tasuku, who knows the truth. Amano, however, finds the whole thing shady since Konoha was acting the previous day like she didn't get the gist of what was going on, and when Chiaki properly introduced her it all felt forced to Konoha. Amano finally declares that even though he is happy that Nobi and Mono are the same person, he never expected this kind of plot twist. Meanwhile, Tasuku just sits there looking and reasons that there is nothing he can do since Chiaki has chosen the route, even though he was trying to help Chiaki wing it before. He thinks aloud that he can't be happy if things work out well between Amano and Tendo. Amano is shocked to hear that, and Tasuku runs off immediately, knowing he just screwed up. On Amano's way back, he thinks about what Tasuku said and wonders if he said that because he likes Tendo or if there is someone else who has a crush on him that Tasuku is backing up. He heads to the game store to buy an adult game, but as he tries to pay, he suddenly sees that Konoha is also paying for the same game.
Perfect.
She becomes embarrassed and regrets not disguising today, but Amano wonders if that's how Mono and Nobi truly are. However, on their way out, Konoha tells him not to tell anyone, but dude's brain seems not to process that. She then asks him what he thinks about her sister, to which he replies that there is nothing really, just that he is surprised she is the sister of Nogi and Mono. She asks what he thinks about Mono and Nobi then, and he eagerly tells her that he loves her works, rizzing her up even though she is not the true Nobi. She ends up landing him a punch for whatever unknown reason. They soon meet Chiaki, and she wonders why they are together. The loose-mouthed idiot almost leaks Konoha's secrets, but she steps on him before he can, and Konoha says they decided to meet up instead, surprising Chiaki, who wonders when they got that close, so Konoha lies that they had a meet-up to talk about work and stuff. Just then, Chiaki receives a call and suddenly shouts over the phone, shocking Amano and Konoha as they wonder what happened. She reveals that Tasuku just suddenly yelled that he had decided to choose her and hung up, making Amano wonder if this was a confession. A while later, Amano congratulates Chiaki, saying having her crush confess to her is something to be happy about. Meanwhile, Konoha interrupts, saying she would have rejected him without a second thought since Tasuku is already known to be with Aguri, making Amano realize that he really doesn't know what to tell Aguri if Chiaki and Tasuku end up dating. Konoha suggests they call Tasuku back and turn him down immediately, but Chiaki becomes worried about how to do that. So Amano suggests that they get advice from a professional rejecter. He calls Tendo immediately to ask, and she wonders if he wants to know it for his own use. The idiot replies yes, and fearing that he is asking so he can use it for her, she tells him to figure it out himself. She ends the call with "I love you," and he instantly sits on the bench, with the other two watching him for feedback. But the buffoon expresses how adorable his girlfriend is, annoying Konoha, so she gives him a Will Smith-level slap. Amano then asks Konoha how she would go about it if it was her, and she gives a useless reply that makes no sense. So Amano suggests that the only solution will be to bring Aguri and Tendo to the meetup so they can solve the issue. Following that, Amano meets Aguri to ask her to join the gamers meetup, but she replies that it'd be odd since she doesn't like games like them. Amano tells her she doesn't have to play games as long as she has a love for gaming, but she replies that she has zero love for gaming. He further tells her that it doesn't matter as long as she loves someone who loves gaming, shocking her because that's too ridiculous to be a qualification to be a part of the group. However, she tells him it would be nice to be in the group together with Tasuku, but she doesn't want to be a problem for them. Amano tries to convince her again by telling her that he also invited Tendo, but this crackhead says it's pretty normal since Tendo is already a gamer after all. He then offers to give her his creamy snack if she agrees to join, and she immediately accepts. Meanwhile, as she eats his cake, he thinks about how Tasuku confessed to a different person and feels sorry for her. The next day, he gathers everyone after school for the meetup, and as he attempts to talk about the reason for the meeting, he suddenly switches and announces that he is going to run full speed for a video game that will be released the next day. Chiaki is disappointed, but Amano couldn't just summon the courage to raise the topic. Seeing how zealous he is about the release, Tendo comments that she has played one of the previous series of the game and asks if it is really worth the hype. Amano reveals that although it wasn't the first game he played, it was the very first that touched his heart, leaving Chiaki stunned. Later that night, she looks for a previous volume of the game and lies down, smiling like she has just made it out of a toxic relationship. Konoha enters and asks if the issue was solved during the meeting, and Chiaki reveals that nothing was solved because Amano chickened out and started yapping about some BS. Konoha mentions that she knew that was gonna happen and blames Chiaki for being a major part of the problem. She tells her to decide what she wants with Amano, or her position as Nobi and Mono will soon become shaky. Chiaki agrees, and Konoha straightly asks if she wants to get close to him or wants to keep fighting with him always. Chiaki becomes silent, and Konoha tells her to take the time to think about it. The next day, Amano heads out after school for his game plans, and Tasuku heads over to meet Chiaki, since the others are not around. As soon as she sees him, she starts to glitch. She tells him she doesn't have an answer, yet because she is not ready to cause heartbreak for anyone. However, Tasuku misunderstands her to mean that she doesn't have an answer yet and doesn't want to hurt Tendo by taking Amano away from her. Tendo appears at that moment and tells them she needs their help with something. Meanwhile, across the street, Aguri meets some of her old pals from her previous school who won't stop mocking her and the meetup group. She gets pissed and stands up to leave, and one of them follows her, asking why she is so pissed when her boyfriend is not among those they dissed. But Amano snubs her and leaves, annoying her. As she walks off, she decides to call Tasuku to seek comfort, but he doesn't pick up because he is currently with Chiaki and Tendo. He asks Tendo what she needs their help with, and she reveals that ever since she started dating Amano, she has been feeling more frisky and in the mood so much that she always wants to be around him. However, she complains that Amano seems to be more concerned about games since he had to even leave for games earlier. She also adds that he goes to eat with Aguri all the time, but Tasuku tells her not to be worried about that because Aguri told him herself that dude is the brother she always wanted, relieving Tendo. However, Chiaki tells her that Amano cannot be separated from his games as he sometimes puts them even before his own happiness, so she has to accept him for that. Tasuku realizes that Tendo really likes Amano, but when she can't stop talking about him, he grabs her and Chiaki to caution them. But unfortunately, Aguri appears at that time and sees him. She gets pissed and runs off. Tasuku follows her immediately while the other two also follow suit. As she runs off, Aguri calls Amano for help, but she soon gets calm when they explain everything to her. She tells them she called Amano earlier, and just when they think he won't show up since he is more concerned about the game release, he shows up breathing heavily. He is surprised to see them and says he thought Aguri had broken up with Tasuku and needed consolation. However, when he learns that it was all just a misunderstanding, he regrets getting worried and coming over in the first place. The others ask him why he is here since he is supposed to be at the game store, but he replies that he had to suspend that because this was more important, surprising them. Just then, Amano and Aguri start arguing like lovers, leaving Tasuku thinking he has now become the third wheel in his relationship. Following this, Tasuku is on his way, feeling terrible about the whole thing when he sees Tendo also having her own share of frustration. He tries to walk past her, but she catches him, and they both get talking. Tendo states that Amano has been happier around her lately, and she supposes it's because of Aguri's influence. Tendo also says he feels Aguri has grown up lately, which prompts Tendo to ask if he thinks it's due to Amano's influence. They both soon realize that Amano and Aguri are helping each other become better, which is an ideal couple scenario, making them sad. Meanwhile, as they keep walking, they both conclude that Amano and Aguri are not the type to be comfortable with the betrayal of cheating on each other's partners. However, Tendo says that sometimes when she thinks about it, she realizes that what Amano shares with Aguri is more than what he shares with her. Hearing this, Tasuku suggests that they turn things around with their own hands, and Tendo gets curious, wondering how they would do that. Tasuku reveals that the only way to prove their relationship is by creating indisputable facts, that is, if they can be alone together and show each other how attached they are. But the thought of this makes Tendo embarrassed to the bones. However, Tasuku cautions himself as he shouldn't be conniving with Chiaki's rival. Meanwhile, someone is spying on them. That night, Tendo calls Amano to tell him about the double date with Tendo and Aguri, surprising him. He wonders what this is about, and even though it'd be quite embarrassing, he agrees to the date. On the day of the date, Tendo and Amano are super excited and start to jump around like they are on cheap crack, which disgusts Tasuku and Aguri. Because what in this messy world is there to be happy about? Some moments later, Aguri and Amano stay together while Tendo and Tasuku run ahead. But Aguri and Amano think that those two are only trying to cover up the fact that they are cheating. Following that, while they wait for the next phase of their adventure, Tasuku and Tendo signal to each other to make a move on their partners, but before they can, they are interrupted by the sight of Chiaki and Konoha. Konoha had invited Chiaki the previous on a hangout, but she claimed that she had plans for the weekend, to which Konoha replied that she should take it as though she were going on a date with Amano, making her embarrassed. Chiaki mentioned that she was not ready for a date with Amano yet, and that Amano had Tendo already, but Konoha told her to be more honest about her feelings. Chiaki was still slow to answer, so Konoha told her she might as well just invite Amano if she didn't want to go. Chiaki immediately said she was going. Meanwhile, Konoha had brought this up because she had earlier spied on Tasuku and Tendo, and realized that they were planning a date, so she was not going to let them get away with leaving her sister out. Back to the present, Amano suggests that they all hang out together since they are already here. Following that, they have some fun on the roller coaster, and then head to a spooky dungeon after. Amano gets excited as this might give him the dopamine he doesn't get from girls, and seeing his excitement, Tendo reasons that this might just be her chance to make her move. As soon as they enter the dungeon, Aguri is the first to be scared, and she grabs Tasuku in the process. At the same time, Tendo steps into a trap and becomes terrified, attracting Amano's attention, which makes Konoha jealous on her sister's behalf. Tasuku and Aguri head on, with Bro still struggling to grab Aguri's hand. Meanwhile, as Tendo turns around to talk to Amano, she suddenly realizes that they are gone through the give-up exit door. Konoha throws Amano and Chiaki out on the other side, and Amano asks what the heck she thinks she is doing. However, Amano notices that Chiaki is awkwardly quiet and asks if he is fine, only for her to collapse on him. She wakes up later and Amano asks if she is really fine because she looks like she is short on blood right now. Konoha leaves to get drinks immediately so the two can talk, and just when Chiaki attempts to say something, Amano receives a call from Tendo. He excuses himself immediately to pick it up, but Chiaki tells him not to leave her all alone here, so he comes back to sit, saying he will just talk to Tendo later. He then asks her why she is here, getting her embarrassed immediately. She replies that Konoha forced her to check it out for a date. This prompts Amano to ask who she is going on a date with, but this embarrasses her even more, and she tells him that's not his business. After a little silence, Chiaki suddenly asks Amano what he thinks of Novin Mono, and he replies that they are so important to him, even though he hasn't fully processed them to be Konoha. Chiaki asks if they are more important to him than Tendo, shocking him as he wonders why she is asking that. She says nothing, and he reveals that Tendo is important to him too, as he is fortunate to have the privilege of being in a relationship with her. He further says Aguri, Tasuku, and her are also important to him, as he never knew he would make this many friends with whom he could hang out, since he used to be a loner with zero social skills. It all started that day when Tendo walked up to him. However, he adds that it still hurts that he doesn't know what Tendo thinks of him, making Chiaki jealous. Konoha returns without drinks to call him a moron, and afterward, Amano suggests they return to where the others are. But Chiaki says she would rather go home and asks him to enjoy the last bit of the date with Tendo. But Amano isn't buying that BS. He grabs her hand and drags her along with him. They return to the others and attend the parade, where Tasuku finally manages to hold Aguri's hand. Amano also holds Tendo's hand, and Chiaki enjoys some laughter with Konoha. Some days later, the gamers' meetup goes on a trip for some fun, and upon getting to the resort, Tendo mentions that he heard that Amano recently bought a useless game. Amano agrees, saying he initially thought he bought something awesome only to realize that it is just a low-budget Fortnite game, and he is sad that he can't return, which means he just wasted a ton of money. Aguri cuts in by saying games are overpriced to begin with, but Tasuku defends that that might be true if you first see the price tag. However, you'd soon realize that they are cheaper when compared to the prices of clothes. Aguri replies that the prices of clothes are understandable since they are daily necessities, but games are not useful for anything. The other game otakus take this personally and starts to defend their passion, but Aguri keeps countering them. This continues till night, and Aguri even raises that the idea of DLCs is flawed, where broke dudes like you who call themselves gamers spend real money to equip game characters. She begs that they'd rather spend the money to get clothes for themselves. Amano starts to defend as much as he can, bringing up different analogies as much as he can to help Aguri see the importance of games, but she just isn't having it and still thinks they are trash, shocking them. Chiaki and Tendo even try to convince her during a sauna battle, but her brain refuses to process their points, no matter how valid some of them are. Later that night, with no one yet to convince Aguri, she insists on the fact that games are unreasonably expensive, and Amani replies that what she said stings for anyone who plays a lot of games. He then says that games might be a form of recreation that's especially open to wastefulness, causing Aguri to ask if they are happy wasting money. To answer this, Amano shares a memory of when his parents bought a game ripoff for him back in his old school, which happened to be a lot more expensive than the original. His parents made a mistake, and he didn't know how to tell them, so he started playing it anyway. But he soon began to enjoy it. He ended up playing it for 3 years while also complaining the whole time. Aguri says that this could have happened even if it were not a game, but Amano replies that he thinks it was only memorable because it was a game, as games are also a flexible medium that gives freedom to invest emotions as much as a person wants. He finally says that even though they can make terrible purchases at times, the only thing gamers can do is to enjoy games to the best of their ability, each in their own way. Tasuku adds that bandwagoning around bad reviews is one way to have fun too, to which the others also give their input based on their experiences, surprising Aguri, who now sees the importance of gaming. Just then, Amano gets excited and asks that they play the terrible game he just got since they are now all on the same page, but they snub him and go to sleep instead, leaving him wondering what the heck all his motivational speech was for. The end. If you enjoyed this recap, clap the like button and comment "game" below. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're yet to for more plot-filled adventures. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video right here.